What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing two very glassy electric type Pokemon that receive buffs to their fast moves this season, with Toxtricity having Acid and Pawmot gaining access to Thundershock, paired with a Pokemon that you probably forgot even got buffed this season in Celio, which was one of the few Pokemon to gain access to Surf. Now if you remember at the start of the season there was quite a lot of hype surrounding Toxtricity with Acid, and if you take a look at how it sims versus the Great League meta, according to PvPoke in the one shield scenario it has an insane 72% win rate, which is actually outrageous. However, in the majority of those matchups, you do rely on having a Power Punch bait shielded and then landing a boosted Wild Charge, whereas in reality, it's just not really going to play out that way in most scenarios. And actually, if you drop baiting completely, the win rate drops all the way down to a 32% win rate, which is obviously not that great, and I will be honest, it just really didn't feel like a great Pokemon to use. I was really looking forward to using this Pokemon, but it did feel like a slight letdown. On the other hand, I hadn't really seen much hype about Pawmot, but this thing is actually really fun to use, with a slightly better pacing to the Wild Charge, and also having Stab Close Combat as an alternate nuke move, rather than a bait Power-Up Punch, which obviously makes matchups a lot more consistent for the Pawmot. However, of course, you do need to be mindful that both charge moves will be dropping your defense by 2 stages, and you're already a very glassy Pokemon, so you got to be very smart about when you throw your charge attacks, but aside from that, it was really fun to use. Now, the biggest issues for this team really was that both back Pokemon get completely walled by Clodsire, which is still one of the strongest and most common Pokemon in the meta, so neither Pokemon really worked as a safe swap, but I was just wanting to showcase 3 newly buffed Pokemon on the same team, so of course, there's going to be Pokemon that it struggles with, but if you did want to run Pawmot, maybe something like Electrify as a safe swap would work better for you, as you've got access to Ice Punch, which is for super effective damage up against ground, grass, and dragon types, which of course all resist electric. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. Which Pokemon do you think was severely overhyped at the start of the season, but hardly anyone is using it right now? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. I should go into the first battle, leading Celio into Credilli. So of course, we are an Ice type Pokemon, so this is going to be, well, a Water and Ice type Pokemon, so this is a bit of an awkward matchup for both sides. We're hitting for super effective damage with the Powder Snows, and in return they're hitting for super effective with both the Bullet Seeds and the Rock Tombs, and I guess the Grass Knot as well. We're now going to swap into Toxtricity here, and we are taking resisted Bullet Seed damage. This Rock Tomb is actually going to do quite a lot of damage, and they swap into an Ember Charizard, and this is another Pokemon that probably got quite a lot of hype at the start of the season, but you're just not really seeing it too much. That might be just due to the fact that it does need an Elite TM to remove either Dragon Breath or Wing Attack or whatever you've got as the fast move for Ember, and both of those moves are also legacy moves, so potentially that is the reason, rather than actually Ember just not being that great for it. But either way, Wild Charge gets the KO there. They come back in with Credilli. I banked the charge move. We swap back into our Celio, and the opponent responds with their Primate. Now, Primate, of course, very glassy. We get the shield with the Surf, and the opponent, they need to full send the close combat here. The opponent does not full send it. They will not get the KO, and as a result, they're forced to throw their next charge move straight away. So at this point, we can come back in with the Pawmot, and of course, Primate, we know very attack weighted, but Pawmot wins CMP pretty comfortably as well. Close combat gets the one shot. They swap back into Credilli, and of course, just one Thundershock away from a second close combat that gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. We're going to see Celio into Shadow Steelix. Now, this is a bit of an awkward matchup here. They are going to have Thunderfang as the fast move, so they're hitting for super effective damage. However, Powder Snows are neutral, Surf going to hit for super effective, and the opponent is going to shield the first move. Now, of course, their charge moves aren't going to be very threatening. They go for Psychic Fangs, so they drop my defense there, but that's okay. I'm going to fire off another Surf, and the opponent looking to commit to a full Thunderfang farm down. Surf grabs the shield there. I will just allow them to fully farm me down. We've got all shields down now, so we can come in with our Pawmot, and of course we're going to take super effective damage from a Psychic Fangs here, so I'm actually going to shield this up, and I will be able to reach a close combat on the CMP tie. Close combat, super effective, it easily gets the KO there. The opponent's going to come in with a Shadow Dust Noir, and we're taking so much damage from the Astonish there, since I had debuffed my defense by 2 stages, so I'm actually going to swap out there, clear the debuff, come in with my Toxtricity, fire off a Wild Charge, and of course Wild Charge hits for huge damage. It gets the KO. Their final Pokemon gonna be Golisopod. I can reach a second Wild Charge, throwing as soon as we get there. Wild Charge takes out Golisopod, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. Going to see a Wigglytuff in the lead. Now, this is a bit awkward for me just because I've got a Poison-type Pokemon in the back, but I've also got a Fighting-type, so kind of forced to stay in here, even though this is a neutral situation where I would prefer to swap into my back Pokemon in neutral situations to bait out any potential threats to the electric typing, but it's just not really going to work out in this situation. And as well, since they've got Wigglytuff in the lead, they might have a Mud Slapper or even two Mud Slappers in the back, in which case there's just no chance for my backline. But anyways, we're going to play this out here, winning the one shield scenario. They come in with Gallitzapod, and they do have a Mud Slapper, but Celio is just so low at this point. I tried to throw on CMP there, doesn't work out as the opponent committing to a full Mud Slap farm down, and the fact that they're non-shadow, they actually tanked that fairly comfortably to the point where I cannot Powder Snow farm down with the Celio. So unfortunately, this is not looking too good for me, but we're going to fire off the Body Slam. Body Slam grabs the final shield as they commit to a huge farm down. So at this point, it's going to be game over. My only hope is if they blind throw a Rock Slide, which they actually do there. So at this point, I'm going to shield this up. If they stay in, allow a farm down, I might win this game. But the opponent is just going to swap back into their shiny Gallitzapod, and of course, they outpace me to the Aqua Jet. It takes out Toxtricity, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We can see a Clodsire, and we definitely need to see it here in the lead. So we are going to go straight for the Surf there, and we'll outpace them before they reach a potential Stone Edge, and we grab a shield from the opponent. Now, Surf actually not going to do that much damage in this matchup. However, I'm happy to grab a shield here. They bait with a Sludge Bomb. They then swap into Cresselia, so I'm going to bank a ton of energy and then swap and catch a Grass Knot onto Toxtricity. Of course, that is resisted damage there. We are now going to farm up a lot of energy. I recognize that Wild Charge won't quite get the KO here, so instead I bait with a Power Up Punch. We grab the shield and we throw a Wild Charge on the CMP ties. That works out perfectly for me, and that is the situation like we see in the sort of Sims on PvPoke where Toxtricity can be deadly. However, in practice it just doesn't work out that way a lot of the time. But anyways, gonna come back in with the Celio, gonna fire off the Surf. Surf is going to connect there, and I can reach a Body Slam before the opponent throws the next charge move. So at this point, I put them into range where I can just Powder Snow farm them down. I should live an Earthquake here, as they have already revealed Sludge Bomb. We're now going to swap into Polmort, and this is going to be game over. The opponent recognizing that, and so they're just going to concede the match. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Drapion in the lead. So, of course, this is a neutral matchup here. I'm going to stay in this matchup, fire off the Surf immediately. The opponent might let this move go through here, and they do. It does decent damage there. Unfortunately, not quite going to put them into range where I can Powder Snow farm them down. However, Crunch comes through here, and I make a bit of a mistake. I throw it on CMP as well. I thought maybe they would bait with an Aqua Tail at this point, but nope, they full send the Crunch there. And I haven't quite put them into range where I can just go for a full Thundershock farm down before they reach the Crunch. So, of course, I'm going to no shield here. The opponent is going to go for Crunch there. Crunch is resisted damage, and that already gets us this low. But they're going to come in with a Fury Cutter Gligar. So at this point, we're going to farm up two back-to-back Wild Charges. First one does respectable damage, considering they do completely wall the Electric and the Fighting typing. We're now going to swap into Toxtricity. And the opponent, of course, if they full send the Dig, it easily one-shots us. It's double super effective. They actually bait with an Aerial Ace, but this is just going to be a second Aerial Ace. Of course, that is resisted damage. I'm going to no shield, and their final Pokemon is the Dene, so we do actually have a chance here. They've got two shields. They don't shield the Power Punch, but at this point, you know, it doesn't really matter. It is the Acid that will start to add up over time. They're now, of course, going to go ahead and boost up the defense, so not going to add up too much. However, I'm now going to try and swap out as the opponent reaches a second Parabolic Charge, and that should be game over. Parabolic Charge gets the KO there. They swap back into Gligar just to be farmed down. I've got back-to-back Power Punches, but I'm just going to commit to a farm down. I'm able to take out the Dene, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You can see Whiscash in the lead. The opponent's going to say swap into Shadow Scissor. And now, this is the awkward thing about Polmort, is that we've only got charge moves that are going to drop my defense. The opponent also goes for Trailblaze, boosting up their attack. So, I cannot guarantee switch advantage in the two shield scenarios, as they can just go straight for a Bullet Punch farm down there. So, of course, that is certainly not ideal. And, of course, since we've got a Toxtricity that will be aligned to the Whiscash, I actually don't really know what I'm planning on doing here. I'm going to come in. I'm assuming they're just going to go for a blind Trailblaze here, so I no shield, and it is the Trailblaze. But we're taking resisted damage, and we are taking so much damage here. But Power Punch should be enough damage to get the KO there. We're saving a shield for our Celio, and it just depends what they've got in the back. So at this point, I'm going to fire off a Surf there. Surf is going to be enough damage by the time we do reach a second Surf, hopefully to two-shot them here before we do have to tank a second Mud Bomb. But actually, I'm not certain it would, so instead of throwing straight away and just narrowly not getting the KO, I'm now going to commit to an overfarm, throw the Surf just before they reach the next move. I don't know who in CMP, so I'm playing it safe. We fire off the Surf there, and they've got a Mandibuzz in the back. So first of all, I don't really know why I went for Body Slam here. I am kind of just trying to kill some time here, hoping to catch the charge move, and I am able to do so. However, 2 more Surfs still won't quite be enough damage to get the KO, and actually, we're not going to reach 2 more Surfs anyways. First Surf there, you can see, does okay-ish damage, and we're going to have to settle for a Body Slam. We're going to throw as late as possible, but Body Slam does not get the KO, and certainly anything they throw here from this range will be taken out of the Celio, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG, so up on there into the next battle, we're going to see Superior in the lead. So a bit of an awkward matchup. Once again, we're going to hit for super effective damage whilst also taking super effective damage. I'm going to fire off the Body Slam here as the opponent is reaching a Frenzy Plant, but they're going to shield that up there. So opponent possibly not recognizing that we don't have a cheap ice move on the Celio. We're now going to swap, catch the charge move, or at least force them to throw something resisted up against our Toxtricity, and they actually go for Grass Knot. So that's why they didn't go for a CMP type with the Frenzy Plant. They're not even running it there, so definitely good for me. They're going to come in with a Skeledirge, and that Wild Charge does huge damage. But they do get the full farm down. So at this point, gonna have to shield this up here as the opponent is gonna go for a Disarming Voice. We can now go for that Thunder Shock, get the farm down there, and their final Pokemon is Credilli. And this is actually looking pretty good for me. We can go for the Close Combat. Close Combat is gonna be shielded by the opponent. I then swap, I catch the charge move onto Celio. The opponent does bait with a Rock Tomb, but that is super effective, so it gets the KO. The opponent tries to make the catch there. It backfires as we hold onto the energy, and that's going to be game over. Once again, they fire off the Grass Knot. We can farm up to back-to-back Close Combat. First one takes out Superior, and a second Close Combat, super effective, up against the bulky Credilli, gets the one shot there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG, stop on there, into the next battle. We're going to see Greninja in the lead. So, of course, I've got 2 Electric-type Pokemon in the back. However, I am expecting one of their back Pokemon to be a Clodsire. So, I don't really want to swap out of this matchup just to be walled. But I'm going to swap. I'm going to catch the next Night Slash onto Pawmot. They did just get the boost, so that does big damage. And we do at least bait out the Clodsire. But, yeah, not really ideal. I think staying in with the Celio to bank at least a Surf was probably a good play there. Just because now if they commit to a farm down, Celio should grab a shield from the opponent as we come back in. And also Close Combats, they do kind of chip there. But either way, we're going to wait out our switch clock here in the full. Come back in with the Celio, fire off that Surf immediately as we come in here. And Surf is going to be shielded by the opponent. Now Celio should be able to tank a Stone Edge just barely. So I might let the next move go through here. But actually, nope, never mind. I'm going to fire off a Body Slam on the CMP type. Body Slam just barely. Does not get the KO there, so I'm just going to let Celio go down. Stone Edge does actually KO from that range, but we get the Acid Farm down there to come back in with Greninja, and I'm expecting it to be a Ghost-type Pokemon in the back. So at this point, I'm going to farm up, and I'm going to over-farm just a little bit here, fire off the Power-Up Punch. From this range, Power-Up Punch should get the KO, so we are going to farm up to back-to-back Power Punches, get the KO up against this Greninja, and their final Pokemon is actually going to be a Furret instead, and we just barely miss out on reaching the Wild Charge there. Swift takes out the Toxtricity, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG's to up over there into the next battle. We're going to see Pelipper in the lead. So, this is a matchup I should be swapping out of, and I don't really understand why I'm not doing so here. Yeah, I don't really have a clue what I'm doing here, but we're going to go ahead and fire off a Body Slam. Body Slam grabs a shield from the opponent, however, which is very nice. Of course, I am purified, so I could have the threat of return, but they do huge damage. Honestly, I did not expect them to full send the Hurricane there. I'm just gonna have to let this move go through. We just barely tank it. We can farm up and fire off a Power-Up Punch. That really does not do much damage whatsoever, and things are looking very awkward for me, but we do still have 2 shields here, and a Close Combat probably gets the KO up against the Galarian Stunfisk here, so we are going to shield that up there, gonna farm up 2 back-to-back charge moves, fire off this first close combat, and the opponent is just gonna let it go down. They come in with a Serperior, so I'm gonna fire off the close combat here. I'm then gonna swap into my Celio, go for the combo play there, fire off a Body Slam. Body Slam, not gonna do much damage, but it actually grabs the final shield, and the opponent... Huge play for me. They swap back into Pelipper, but that's exactly what I wanted, because now we can come in with the Pawmot. We can commit to the full Thundershock farm down. And despite playing really weirdly here, I'm able to go for the close combat, take out the Serperior, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Azumarill in the lead. So, we are going to swap out straight away into our Pawmot, and the opponent is going to respond with a Diggersby, but that's okay. We've got close combat, full coverage. I'm going to shield this up here as the opponent is just going to go straight for a Fire Punch. However, I feel like in the 2-shield scenario, if they land a Fire Punch, they can just commit to the farm down. Close combat does huge damage, but unfortunately, I cannot commit to a Thundershock farm down as that is double resisted. So, forced to throw a second close combat. They come back in with Azumarill, but we reach a last second wild charge, and the opponent just not shielding whatsoever. This game is looking like it's going to be over here, but of course it does depend what they've got in the back. The opponent fires off the Ice Beam, that's double resisted. They've got a Snarlman, a Buzz, and I would do very well to end up losing this game here, but I wouldn't put it past myself here, so let's carry on playing this out here, see what we do. We're going to fire off a Surf. I'm basically staying in with a Celio, hoping to grab some shields here eventually. Celio is bulky enough to tank this next move as well. They full send the Dark Pulse here. We tank it very comfortably. We can fire off the Surf, and then eventually I will swap into my Pawmot, but actually apparently not yet. The opponent makes a really nice catch there. Honestly, I hadn't realized I didn't farm down the Azumarill there, but it doesn't really matter. We can now come in with the Toxtricity, and this will be game over. I'm going to no-shield, they bait with an Aerial Ace there. We can fire off the Power Punch, and we will put them into range. Or I can actually just Acid, farm them down here. I don't need to fire off another Charge Move. We get the farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We can see Primeape in the lead. So, of course, not ideal. Going to say swap into my Pawmot once again. And the opponent is going to fire off a charge move. The opponent is going to go for a Rage Fist there before swapping into Clodsire. So, once again, Pawmot just getting completely walled here. Not a lot I can really do. And as well, that Rage Fist puts me into range where they can just commit to a full Poison Sting farm down, which is certainly not ideal. But we land 2 close combats there. We get them at least into the yellow health range. At this point, Celio, I'm going to have to tank a charge move from this Clodsire. They full send the Earthquake there, so probably not going to be running Stone Edge for coverage, which means I can just no-shield here. It's just a Sludge Bomb. I'm now going to overfarm massively, farm up 2 back-to-back charge moves here. So if they come back in with that Primeape, I do have a Surf already loaded. This should grab a shield from the opponent, and then we just got to hope they don't have a second Ground-type Pokemon in the back. So at this point, I am going to, of course, start shielding my Toxtricity. They fire off the Rage Fist. I'm now going to overfarm, throw on the Sempitite, hoping to grab a shield here with the bait. But the opponent lets that go through, and Power Punch just does not do much damage whatsoever. I needed the shield there. But we can go for the Acid Farm down. They've got a Typhlosion in the back, and... oh, I make a big mistake here. I should have just baited this time around. We grabbed the shield. I thought they'd throw straight away, and they don't. If I stayed in there, I also reach a wild charge. But both mistakes there end up the opponent farming down the Celio, coming out with the Blast Burn loaded. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to that trainer into the next battle. We're going to see Dragalge in the lead. So this is a great matchup for us. I'm going to throw on CMP with a potential Sludge Bomb here. And the opponent does full send it, but that's okay. We can reach back-to-back Body Slams here before they do reach another charge move. So that's fine with me. But it's actually going to swap into Dunsparce. And of course, they're going to have access to Drill Run. However, I am resisting the fast move damage. And close combat will very comfortably one-shot them. So I'm going to throw here just before they do reach a second Drill Run. And by the time they get to a third Drill Run, actually I will be able to outpace them to 2 more close combats. So going to shield that up there. I'm now going to farm up 2 back-to-back charge moves. I actually just 1 away, as this is good charge move timing. Close combat, grabs the final shield. We can throw the next one before they do reach that third Drill Run. Close combat, gets the one shot there. They come back in with Dragalge. I recognize I'm actually just barely not going to reach a charge move, so I'm going to bank the energy and the health there. Swap into Celio. That just doesn't quite get the KO there. That's fine with me. Aquatail also does not take me out. Their final Pokemon, going to be a Jellicent, and actually, I'm just going to come in with my Toxtricity here. The opponent will need to full send a Shadow Ball, and even then, I think we might just barely live it. But either way, they throw on CMP, losing CMP, Wild Charge, takes out the Jellicent, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to open there into the next battle. We're going to see Drapion in the lead. So, last time around, we did play to the CMP tie, which we lost. So, maybe we will change it this time around. But we are still just going to fire off that Surf immediately here. So, Surf going to be coming through. It does respectable damage. The opponent is going to fire for Charge Move of their own. And they go for a Sludge Bomb there. So, that should mean that I do now outpace them to that next Charge Move. Body Slam from this range does get the KO. But they're going to come in with a Rapidash. So, I swap into my Pawmot. And the opponent swaps into Swampert, and that is actually quite good for me. If they stayed in with a Rapidash, they could have committed one shield and farmed me down, but now the opponent is going to throw here. I'm going to save both my shields for my Toxtricity. We're going to come in with the Celio. We put them into range where we can Powder Snow, farm them down. We're going to come out one away from the Body Slam, but we throw two Powder Snows just to make sure we throw on good timing. We grab the first shield from the opponent. We're going to come in with the Toxtricity, and even if they do have coverage with Ground-type Charge Moves, it doesn't really matter. They go for Scorching Sands. They actually drop my attack there, which might make a difference here, but it should still be fine, as we can go for two Acids, fire off the Power-Up Punch. Power-Up Punch should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and now we can just full send the Wild Charge, and of course, Wild Charge will very comfortably take out the Rapidash when it does connect, eventually to take out that Rapidash, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to open there into the next battle. We're going to see Celio into Unova Stunfisk. So, of course, this is a core breaker to the team. However, Celio does have a lot of play, as we do have Powder Snow and Surf, which are going to hit for super effective damage. They're going to swap into a Poliwrath, and I'll be honest, I don't have a clue why I came in with my Pawmot. My thinking was, if they no shield here, I do at least have, like, neutral coverage with close combat to throw into Unova Stunfisk coming back in, whereas if I came in with a Toxtricity through a Wild Charge and then completely walled by that Stunfisk. But actually, the opponent is going to use both their shields here, commit to that farm down, and suddenly I've lost switch advantage. I'm going to have Toxtricity aligned to their Unova Stunfisk. So things aren't looking too good for me. I'm going to no-shield the Icy Wind here. I will be able to reach a Wild Charge. I'm going to overfarm just a little bit here, fire off that Wild Charge before they do reach another Icy Wind. And of course, Wild Charge, even debuff, gets the KO there. We go for the combo play, firing off the Surf with our Celio into Unova Stunfisk. The opponent banks some energy before swapping into Talonflame, and I'm throwing at the last possible second, but I need this Surf to KO. And Surf does not do the job there. We can come back in with Toxtricity. I have to use my final shield here. However, it just doesn't really matter. If I came out with the Wild Charge loaded, it's triple resisted, so it's just not going to do much damage here. You can see Wild Charge does not get the KO, and it is a CMP tie. So, of course, the opponent can go for the Mud Bob. It takes out the Toxtricity, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. So, of course, this is definitely where we want to see it with this team. However, it's still not that comfortable for me. I'm going to no-shield. I don't really know why I no-shielded there, just because if the opponent wants a double shield now, I am just completely cooked. But we are going to go for a Body Slam bait there, and then at this point, I'm hoping the opponent does just no-shield once again, and they do. So Surf gets the KO. We actually win the 0-1 shield scenario, which is actually great for me. The opponent going to come in with a Dusknoir, and this is fine with me. We farm up to back-to-back Wild Charges. We throw on the CMP tie, winning CMP, and grabbing the final shield. So at this point, of course, I'm going to use my shield here as the opponent fires off the Shadow Punch. I'm now going to overfarm, throw a Wild Charge just before they reach a second Shadow Punch. And of course, Wild Charge gets the KO there. We can fire off another Wild Charge. And this is going to do huge damage into the Lantern. I'm now going to swap into my final Pokemon, a Toxtricity. And this is absolutely game over. The opponent, recognizing that they're not throwing a charge move, Wild Charge takes out the Lantern. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Celio into Dedenne. So, this is definitely an awkward matchup for me. I'm going to say swap into my Pawmot, and the opponent is going to respond with a Claydol. So far, things are not looking very good for me, but we will reach 2 close combats here, and whilst they are resisted, and once again, it is another Pokemon that completely walls the Pawmot, I've put them into range where Celio can hopefully come in and go for a Powder Snow farm down. So we're going to have to no-shield here, as they're probably going to do more damage with a Parabolic Charge than with the Rock Tomb here non-stab. So we commit to the farm down. We have a Surf loaded, but I'm going to swap instantly into Toxtricity. but they're going to have a Gligar in the back now. We do actually, of course, resist the fast move damage, so it's not the worst case scenario for me. However, I'm going to go for a power-up punch bait. I need to grab the shield here, and the opponent does actually use their shield. At this point, I can tank an Aerial Ace, but it will get me pretty low here, so maybe I should have shielded. We farm up to back-to-back wild charges here. First one is going to be no shielded. It gets the KO, but I am incredibly low, so I fire off a power-up punch. They do shield that. We swap into Celio, but unfortunately, unintentionally, we end up throwing on CMP there, or catching the charge leaf. I wanted to just snipe straight away before they boosted up their defense, and now the opponent overfarms perfectly there. They do reach a second parabolic charge, and that means I cannot get the KO with a power punch. I needed to commit to the wild charge there, and unfortunately they do outpace me. Parabolic charge gets the KO, and we do lose that game. But GG stop and there into the final battle of this video, leading into Furrow. I'm going to swap into my Palmer as I am resisting the fast move damage. They're going to respond with the Dene, and this is actually not that bad for me since I am so far ahead on energy. Back-to-back wild charges will get the KO, so I should grab a shield advantage in this matchup, so that's exactly what I'm going to play for. However, since I, of course, just quad debuff my defense, a parabolic charge will get the KO there very comfortably. So now we come in with the Toxtricity. I do completely wall the Dene, so I'm going to no shield here. They forced in the play rough. That does quite a lot of damage, but we do hang on, and let's see. The opponent's going to come in with the Forest, so I'm going straight for Wild Charge here. Wild Charge is not respected. It does huge damage. I swap into Celio now to clear my debuff. They fire off a Swift Bait there, but their final Pokemon is Jumpluff. Now, this is actually not as comfortable as you probably think it should be here, as we do hit for double super effective damage with the Powder Snows, but Body Slam, not that great of a charge move anymore. The opponent is actually on Energy Ball as well, so not ideal for me there, but either way, I should still be looking fine. They don't have much fast move pressure up against the bulky Celio. And at this point, I think I'm going to shield this and then going to swap back into Toxtricity, predicting the opponent also swaps into Furrow, which they do. And now, of course, we can just commit to a Wild Charge. We're full sending it. And from this range, Wild Charge takes out the Jumpluff, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.